Hello, lovelies. I am Hollie Hope, and I want to thank you for diving into allowing yourself to combat some of the worry and stress by allowing yourself to trust deeper. And in this video, we are going through why we don't trust and understanding some of those resistance that we have and apprehensive feelings toward trusting not just other people, but trusting God, Spirit, trusting ourselves, and trusting the process. And so in that, we're going to start out with the emotional crap part, because in all of these kits, that's my job, I feel like, is to dive into the crap, straightforward. So we're going to get right into it. And then through identifying what is blocking us from trusting, we can better understand how to allow ourselves to feel more open, to feel more confident when we are taking steps forward. So the number one reason why we don't trust ourselves is that resistance factor. So when we start to trust and we start to take action, the very first thing I have to say, anytime it's anything big, is we'll get some form of resistance. We'll get some form of the old coming up to challenge the new. And when that happens in my world, the very first thing I say is, okay, the decision you made that you're taking action on, is this a decision that you made when you were in the light, or is it a decision you made when you were in the dark? And most often it's a decision that you made in the light. Okay. And then I literally tell this to myself all the time. Okay, Hollie, well, if this is a decision you made to yourself in the light, why are you questioning it now that you're in the dark? So asking yourself, did I make a decision based out of fear? Am I acting out of fear? Am I moving forward because I'm trying to avoid the thing which is painful that I don't ever want to feel again? Which brings us to understanding that resistance isn't just about I get pushed back, so it's a no. Usually if you're gonna get a no, it's gonna be when you're making the decision, if it's divinely inspired, right? But what happens is when we don't trust ourselves, then we say, oh, you know what? This information that I received must not have been good because this bad thing's happening, this struggle's happening. And I can't tell you how many times people have gotten extremely ill right before a session with me, and then they started to say, ooh, maybe I'm not supposed to because I'm sick. I'm like, oh no, honey, that's affirmation. If you're getting sick, the crap's coming up and let's move forward. And I have so many people say, you know what, as soon as I did, like, all hell broke loose and my kids started fighting and all of this happened, and it's like, oh yeah, it's probably confirmation that, and they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, when you were making your decision of moving forward, did it feel aligned? Did it feel light? Did it feel exciting and joyful and high vibration? Well, yeah, then that was the right decision. Did it feel heavy and scary and the whole time you're like, I just hope, I don't know. That means it was made in the dark and in fear because you weren't certain of your decision when you made it. So one of the ways we know when we're making a positive choice is that we're able to go, you know what, hands down, 100% all in, this is the path. And that also brings us to another reason why we don't trust ourselves is because, well, I once trusted myself in the past, and when I did, something bad happened. Okay, honey, this is human life, and we experience all the things. And when we experience all the things, you're going to experience things that suck. You're going to experience things that are hard. It doesn't mean that you're no longer able to trust yourself to move forward and that you can make choices so you'll never experience any pain. So many times when we say, oh no, I must be off the path because I'm feeling pain, I tune in and it's like hands down always, nope, you never left the path. Sometimes we got to go four-wheeling. Sometimes the path is going to have mud and muck. Sometimes weeds have grown in and we need a machete to cut that shit down. So the path is sometimes going to be rough. It doesn't mean that you've left the path because it feels hard. That's the biggest lie that the adversary tries to convince us and the darkness tries to use, is that you shouldn't trust yourself because if it's hard, it's obviously not the right decision. No, it can be the right decision even if it's hard. It doesn't mean that you're not moving forward on your path. The other interesting thing is a lot of times when we dive into trust, we don't trust because we have been manipulated. Our vulnerability has been exploited. I know many people who have had religious experiences where they felt like they were manipulated. They felt like they needed to believe in something and somebody came along and was that belief system and ended up using it for their own ulterior motives. That would create a huge rip of trust in religion, in relationships, no matter who it was. And a dear friend of mine, she, when she was a teenager, actually, she was manipulated into a cult, but it was a cult of two. And he ended up like marrying her, and they lived out off the grid, and her parents supported it because they thought it was her spiritual path. He ended up torturing her, and it was really, really dark and heavy. And later years, you know, now that she's older and she's moved through that, she said oftentimes it was a powerful experience because what it did was it allowed her to know what is true alignment and what is the joy of possibility. So when this man approached her, he said, you have these special gifts, I can tell, and I can help you magnify them. And he did it through torture. And in that realm, he was able to get her senses to be heightened as her body would go on self-defense using any tool it could. Now, this is really dark stuff I'm talking about, and I understand that, but somebody, at least one of you, needs to hear it, so that's why I'm sharing it. And so in this experience, she ended up, you know, the Stockholm Syndrome where you fall in love with your captor, because she didn't even have an option to leave at that point. And she'd try, and he would freeze her out and all these things to try and get her to activate like her Reiki fire. And it was a really torturous, treacherous experience. But honestly, she says it worked. Like, she was able to tune in and know how powerful she was for survival, which meant that she knows she could handle anything in life. And now that she's in a safe environment, that she understands what safety is, she knows the second something is not in alignment. She can see it a mile away. And so understanding that those moments where you didn't trust yourself, or those moments where you did trust yourself and horrible things happen, it doesn't mean that you weren't on the path, and it doesn't mean that you were out of alignment, and it doesn't mean that it's going to happen again. A lot of times those experiences we have are just that, experiences. If we think of how evolution works, one creature has an experience. If it's a really crappy experience that they don't like, they're going to hold that in their DNA. If it's a really positive experience they like, they're going to hold that in their DNA. They're going to pass it on, and the next generation can start to evolve and understand. So when it comes to trust, usually the reason we don't trust is because we can't forgive ourselves for not knowing when a decision was made or an action was made, and we should have known better, right? Also, we can't forgive other people for being mean. And now this gentleman that hurt this friend of mine, he probably thought he was doing something wonderful. Or he probably felt like he deserved to take whatever he wanted. And so truth is in the eye of the beholder. So very rarely do people maliciously choose to manipulate and hurt people. Even people who are not mentally healthy and have a lot of toxic relationships and toxic interactions, in their mind, they are truth. They are right. They are correct. And so that's where sometimes it's so hard for us, because we can't trust ourselves because other people are so affirm and theirs is the right way, theirs is the only way. And we're not quite that absolute. So it makes us question ourselves. So as we're diving in, trying to allow the flow and allow the process and allow things to come to us, asking ourselves, am I trusting this because I just want to feel absolute? Or am I trusting this because another person feels absolute and I'm leaning on those absolutes? As we're deciding if something is relevant to us, if we are receiving correct information, or if we're receiving corrupted or ulterior motive information, there's a few questions we can ask ourselves. So the first one is, does it feel light versus dark? Does it feel clear versus convoluted? Like, we can see so many pathways and scenarios and it's like, they're all good, or they're all confusing, or none are good. Just even identifying and acknowledging these things will help us to get clarity so we can trust that we're making the right decision. The body also remembers way more information than the mind does. And so how does your body respond when you are tuning into something? Is your body really sick to your stomach? And there's a difference between I'm so excited for this and nervous at the same time, because it means growth. It means something bigger. It means we are moving into something I've never done before, and I just have to 100% leap and trust. That's a different energy than, oh no, I don't like this, it feels so icky, but I have no choice, so I must move forward. So if you ever feel like you're trusting it because you have no choice, you are making a trust, an action, a decision out of fear rather than faith, out of trying to avoid the pain versus trying to step into alignment. So paying attention to your body. Are you not able to sleep because you're anxious, or are you not able to sleep because you are so excited and you're ready for something to shift and you just feel ignited and on fire? Those are different emotions. Now, a lot of times that remorse and that regret will hold us back. And it will hold us back because we say, well, I should have known better, or they should have known better and they didn't, so I'm going to feel this pain again. So a couple of things I wanted to really point out here. Okay, I'm never going to use the stove again. And by never using the stove again, I'm never going to cook, which means somebody always has to cook for me, which means now I have to find somebody who will also not use the stove, because what if they get burnt, or what if they leave it on and then I get burnt? So all of a sudden, all that choice that you had goes zoom, smaller, and you narrow yourself down. So now, instead of evolving and learning, oh, this is how you work a stove, this is what we do with a stove, we end up retracting and pulling back and being less healthy and less happy. And somebody else is going to probably come along and be way more happy and spread lots of their light and their information and their evolution, and we will miss the boat. And if you know anything about evolution, those who miss the boat, those who wouldn't evolve, they died, right? And so you kind of die, you know, you just this is the hard stuff. I promise it gets lighter. Also, it's important to remember that when these pains come back, if it is something that you still have more to learn, we don't need to avoid it because we'll learn deeper. We'll also be able to move through it easier. So if it's your first time ever getting burned, you're gonna go, I don't know what to do. Do I put butter on it? Do I put Crisco on it? Do I run it under this? Do I do this? How do I handle this? Neosporin? What is it that I'm supposed to do with this burn? But if you've already been burned once, you'll be like, oh yeah, now I remember. Some ice cold water is the best thing for the burn. And then if it blisters, we can do this ointment later after it blisters, and you'll have a system. And then hopefully you learn to not get burned in the first place. And you don't do that by avoiding, you do it by knowing how to move through life, knowing how to be prepared when you need to be prepared and allow the flow when you need to allow the flow. Also, you're easier at seeing those red flags. Now, I have to say, I can see a red flag in a toxic relationship a mile away. Why? Because I've done it. My poor daughters, every time they are interested in a boy, I'm like, do you want to hear the red flags or not? Sometimes they don't, and I have to respect that boundary, right? But I can see them because I'm like, ooh, this and this and this trajectory could be all this, and this and this and this could be all this. And it's not that I'm obsessing and worrying and feeling anxiety. It was just like, oh, here's some information to be aware of. Hey, here's an option. If this happens and it escalates to here, it's probably not going to be healthy. So if you know that going into it, you're less likely to just dive in blindly and then go, why didn't I see that? Or why didn't anybody tell me? You're more likely to go, oh, I know what this sign means. I probably need more information. So rather than everything you see that might be negative being a reason to run, it's a reason for more information. So asking yourself, what new information do I need? Or what new information can I gain through this experience? Because that's what it's all about, is experience and understanding. And each time you find something that doesn't work, you find something that does, or a new idea that may work, and you start to think outside of that box. So now we're gonna talk about when we have a resistance to forgiveness in general. So a lot of us do develop an allergy to feeling forgiveness. We feel like we need to hold it back because of that one time that we forgave somebody and then we got hurt again, right? And so then we decided, you know what, no, it's just easier because I can't forgive anybody for hurting me and I don't want to get hurt again. So if I just hold this emotion and I keep this forgiveness withheld, then it'll make it easier to never have this pain again. The even bigger struggle is when we withhold forgiveness for ourselves. Now, there are times where you're going to see all the red flags and you're going to move forward anyways because you're excited, and it's going to end up hurting. And then we learn, and then we decide, well, I'm still not going to forgive myself, even though. And you have, and I call these emotional allergies, where we develop an allergy because of that one time that something really bad happened after we had something that we thought was good, but it wasn't really good. It was really bad because it hurt. So it had to have been bad, rather than understanding it's an experience. And then we avoid all of it altogether. And so this dials back to, I can forgive other people because they didn't know any better. I can't forgive myself because I knew better. And we have to remember that all of us know better, and all of us make choices that we weren't thinking. At my retreats, there's one thing that we do every time when we have this big circle of women, and it's, if you have been hurt by another woman, raise your hand. So if you have been hurt by another human, raise your hand. Now, keep your hand up if you have also hurt another woman. And keep your hand up if you've also been the cause of somebody else's hurt. And once more, if you have asked somebody for forgiveness, raise your hand. If you've received forgiveness, raise your hand. And if you have had somebody withholding forgiveness, raise your hand. And if you have withheld forgiveness from somebody who wasn't really sorry or didn't deserve it, raise your hand. And most of us will have our hands up the entire time. Why? Because we're messy humans. That's what we do. Most of the time when we hurt somebody, we don't either know that we hurt them, or we didn't mean to hurt them, or we thought something was going to go different than what it actually did. That's where we're learning experience. And that's where communication gets to be open, and we get to share, and we get to tune into one another and deepen that connection by saying, you know what? You're a messy human and I forgive you. I'm a messy human and I want to be forgiven. So I'm going to forgive you when you mess up. And a lot of times we don't allow this space to happen because we spiral. We say, if I mess up, this is my perfectionist friends out there. If I mess up, then that means I am no longer lovable. I'm no longer of value. Well, that's incorrect, because that's conditional love, not unconditional love. Your kids mess up all the time. Like, even my dog messes up and like vomits in the house. Oh no, you vomited in the house. I don't love you anymore. No, that's not what we do. It's like, oh, you vomited in the house. I'm getting rid of carpet if you're going to do this a lot. Oh, great. Now it's an easy cleanup. Hooray, we have learned, we have evolved. So there's always a lesson in it. So as you're diving into tuning in, ask yourself, am I resisting feeling forgiveness, especially for myself? Am I resisting feeling forgiveness from God for letting bad things happen, for not being there for me, or source or spirit, whoever you believe in? Am I withholding forgiveness for another person because I feel like they should have known better, or I know they knew better and they chose not to, or they're not sorry, or they don't care, or they tell me I'm being ridiculous? Like, write these things down in, like, and again, I know I've said these in other videos. I love having a black journal that's for all the garbage dump, and maybe diving in and asking yourself some of these hard questions. Where am I withholding forgiveness for someone else? Where am I withholding forgiveness for myself? There is a belief with this allergy too, that if we punish ourselves constantly, that by punishing, we won't make the same mistake again because we'll always be in pain. It actually means that you're always in pain. So when you feel pain, it feels devastating. That's really what it means. Because punishment is supposed to teach you that what it was that happened didn't work out. Do something different next time. Now, natural consequences say that if you do something and it wasn't the right alignment, it's going to cause some sort of pain. And if you do something and it causes pain, you learn not to do it anymore, and then you don't. So why would you need to be punished? Oh, I made this business decision and I was betrayed and let down and all of these things happen. Okay, great. Now we know not to do those things again. Let's assess it. Where has it gone wrong? What has gone right? What do we do different next time? Making a plan helps with that forgiveness process, because then you don't have the fear. The fear of, what if I make a wrong decision? What if I make a wrong decision again? That's a really big fear. In relationships, especially when we've been through a divorce or a really yucky experience, or parting ways was really, really hard, we get really scared. It's even a type of like relationship PTSD. I admit that I have it. Well, have working through it, right? Just because you have so many things that are negative that it's hard to believe that something could be different. And that's where going through the next system that I'm going to share can kind of help with those. So the very first step is to act. So when we get information, allowing ourselves to take some sort of action. If you think about it all the time, you're like, okay, this is the right answer. I got it in full light. we get to move forward, but then you don't move forward, you're not going to trust yourself, because you're going to be like, oh, you remember that time where you had that idea and then you didn't do anything? Yeah, you screwed that up. Or you do move forward, but you hesitated. And that golden moment, that window of opportunity may have closed. So the information may have come through correctly for that exact time. However, the action wasn't followed with it. And therefore, that window is closed, and you're not going to get the same powerful results that you would have gotten the first time had you acted. And that's where the crystals in your kit come in really handy, because they are alignment focused and they are action focused, and helping to propel into movement and applying what you are wanting and moving forward with it, rather than just speculating and thinking and then holding yourself back and all of that. So the first step is to make some form of action. Even if you don't know how to act, choosing to act by saying, hey, I'm declaring what I want. I'm declaring what I need information on. I am going to research. I'm going to do something so that I can start moving forward. I have a lot of light and shadows on me, but that's okay. The next step is to assess. So after the action, assess it. Like, this is how we build trust. So I took this action. This is what I thought would happen. This over here is what actually happened. Was that still a positive, or was it a negative? Oh, it was a negative. Okay, what would I like to be different? And understanding, okay, this is how I would handle this different. Here's how I would handle that different. So once we do all of that, it allows us to see the path and have a plan, and to learn from experiences which remove the reason for punishment, which is what withholds forgiveness, and what will block trust every single time. If we're in the middle of punishment, we don't trust ourselves. We're bad and we're shamed and we hold ourselves back. If it is the correct action, then that's powerful, and you get to go to the next step, which is that affirmation, like understanding, ooh, this is correct. This is what I want. I get to celebrate this, and I get to own it and explore it and be with it. So ask, assess, affirmation. Even if you want to add one more, you can also ask. You could ask trusted source if it is in alignment. You can have somebody who is an expert at whatever you're doing give you some feedback, and just say, hey, can I get some open feedback? The power of taking somebody to lunch and just picking their brain for a minute is really wonderful. Just make sure you're the one paying for lunch if you're picking their brain. I'm just saying, equal energy exchange. And allowing yourself to have a chance to explore deeper that confirmation of being right. And so that's where, as part of the asking yourself, was I trusting myself? Is that why this worked out or didn't work out? And writing it down. Asking yourself, is this something that worked the way I planned? Did I just trust myself and it worked out? Yes? Oh, good. I'm going to write this down and journal it so that I remember the next time I doubt myself that, oh yeah, you remember this time that I tried this new thing and it worked out really well? Yeah, remember that, because when you're in your dark moments, you'll start to doubt, and we don't want to doubt. We want to move forward with that faith and that strength to actually have a sense of guided alignment on our path. As we're moving forward and we're allowing these things that are in our past to shift into being experiences, not things that hold us in our past. One of the things that helps me is to use the affirmation of not my new normal. Because there's that voice in your head that says, hey, you shouldn't do this because every other time this has happened, and this is just going to happen again, and you're going to hate it, and it's going to be a struggle. All of this noise and all of these voices are going to be in your head saying, last time this happened, last time that happened, you shouldn't do this again. This isn't really safe. This isn't really what we want. Well, that's going to happen. One of the ways we shift that is by saying, you know what? That's true for the past, but that's not my new normal. Not my new normal. Nope, not my new normal. I'm not living that way. I'm not operating that way. I choose to change and I choose to be different. Not my new normal. And even when other people say, hey, you shouldn't do this because in the past this has happened and this is always how it works out, you can say, nope, that's not my new normal. Nope, we decided to evolve. And a lot of times that helps. I can't tell you how many times that has given me personal strength to do something that's way outside my comfort zone, because it happens all the time. Another thing that helps me is to have a moment where, as I'm meditating, as I'm tuning in, I allow myself to lean back. In a hammock is perfect. Leaning back with your chest fully exposed, your throat fully exposed, and like all the way. So your heart is up to the sun or to the moon, depending on if it's day or night. And as I'm doing that, I'm allowing myself to open it all up and exposing my neck, exposing my heart, opening that area up, because that's where If the mind is coming in and trying to stop something that you're feeling inside, it's going to be in your throat. It's going to be here. So when the mind and the heart don't agree, it's the throat that shows up. So that's where I always say, like, open that throat as wide as you can. And I'll do some affirmations, reminding myself of the forgiveness that gets to exist in there, reminding myself of the trust that gets to flow. And when I'm doing that, I'm pouring in and I'm saying, I love when I feel forgiveness for myself. I love when I feel forgiveness for myself. Not even saying I feel it right now, but I love when I do, because that's going to put that emotion into your body. It's going to make it easier to trust yourself and have those decisions without having that whole punishment and all the what ifs. Also, I would encourage you to follow it with, I love when I feel trust. I love when I feel trust. Not I love that I am trusting. Don't use am. I am. Use I feel. I love when I feel trust. I love when I feel trust. Even just doing the affirmations right before a big decision, this can help to pull those emotions into your body, to pull that sense of confidence and clarity in saying, I actually know when something's not right. Because afterwards, I always tell myself, dang it, I knew it. So allowing yourself to feel that. Now, your crystal grid is a really great place to focus some of that into tangible energy, so you can say, this is where I'm following my trust, this is where I'm following my gut, and even leaving the crystal grid out as you act, because that way, if your mind tries to doubt, you have a visual representation of, hey, no, this is not our new normal. We're resetting. We're moving forward. I love allowing myself to feel forgiveness, especially for myself, because I am a beautiful, messy, delicious human, and I love being one. And I'm here for experience. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm not here to keep me from avoiding any type of road bumps or pain along the path. I am here to evolve. And each step I learn a little more. And there are no mistakes, only self-inflicted punishment and torture. So don't do that. I hope that this has helped you to get out of some of the mind clutter that we do when it comes to trust and not trusting ourselves. Allowing ourselves to remember that if it feels light, follow that. Light is the best description word for feeling trust. I love you. I celebrate you. Have an amazing day, my loves.